I found out my wife was cheating and heard her laughing with friends, calling me a loser while bragging about the fun she had with a man I knew well. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I just ghosted her, disappeared without a word, leaving her to sit in the silence she created and wonder how she lost everything without even seeing it coming that I'm a 57-year-old man, and I've been married to the love of my life. Let's call her Lucy, for 26 years. We were college friends long before we tied the knot. We knew each other for a decade before getting married. For the first 2 years, we were just friends. Then I spent a year pursuing her, and we dated for the remaining 7. Even during those years, we endured a long-distance relationship at times because of work. But we made it through. Lucy wasn't just my wife or the mother of my kids. She was also my best friend. She understood me in ways no one else ever did. That's why what happened recently broke me. Just about a week ago, Lucy and I went to our college reunion. Our college hosts one every year for classes that graduated 35 years ago. It's a big deal with performers, music, and a lot of alumni showing up. This year, it was our turn. Everyone was excited, including us. After all, Lucy and I were one of the rare college couples who actually stayed together. We were proud to show up as a lasting love story. We walked in ready to have a great night, catching up with friends and reminiscing. It felt like everything was perfect until someone approached us. Let's call him Rick. Rick was an old classmate who had always carried a torch for Lucy. Back in the day, it was no secret. Everyone knew how obsessed he was with her. Lucy was one of the smartest and most beautiful girls in our year, so naturally, she had her share of admirers. I was one of them too. But unlike most guys who moved on, Rick never let go. He kept chasing her even when it was clear she was in love with me. I never let it bother me. I was confident in our relationship, and Rick honestly wasn't a threat. He wasn't her type, and everyone knew she was out of his league. I still remember when he found out we'd gotten married. He actually sent me a message saying Lucy had made a mistake. He even added that he hoped I would treat her as well as he would have. We laughed it off at the time. It was just sad and a little pathetic. We hadn't seen or heard from Rick since then, until the reunion. We figured he had moved on after all these years. But when he came up to us, it was like time hadn't moved for him. He still had that same obsessive energy. He greeted everyone with hugs, but when he got to Lucy, she chose to shake his hand. His stare was intense and made her visibly uncomfortable. He sat across from Lucy and just kept looking at her in this strange way. Trying to make small talk, I asked if he had brought his family. He said he was single and had been divorced. I offered a polite sorry to hear that, and he responded with, "Well, yeah, you should be. You stole my love," then burst into a weird laugh. If I were younger, I might have reacted more strongly, but at this point in life, it didn't seem worth it. Rick's not threatening. He's just kind of pathetic and loud. People around us noticed the awkwardness, and the atmosphere shifted. But we tried to move past it. Lucy grew quiet, though. Our friend Nancy and I took her aside to try to cheer her up. We told her to shake it off and enjoy the evening. We knew Lucy sometimes overthinks things, and we didn't want Rick's nonsense to ruin the night. Out of nowhere, Rick approached again. He apologized, saying he didn't mean to upset her. Instead, he claimed he wanted to remind her that even after all these years, she was still beautiful and had admirers. I had enough of his weird charm offensive and told him to back off. Lucy asked him to leave too, but he kept pleading for forgiveness, so we could all just enjoy the evening. It sounded overdramatic, but we wanted to be done with it. Lucy gave him a quick hug and told him it was time to move on. We all hugged and went to the dance floor, trying to have a good time. Soon enough, others joined in, and the party started to feel fun again. I later noticed Rick chatting and dancing near Lucy and Nancy. He was acting a little goofy, but I figured if Lucy was okay with it, I didn't need to worry. He whispered something to her, and she smiled and nodded. I didn't think much of it. If it had been inappropriate, she would have reacted. About an hour passed, and suddenly Lucy and Nancy were nowhere to be found. At first, I didn't think too much of it since everyone was mingling. But after a while, I started looking for them. I tried calling, but neither answered. I figured the music was too loud. After about half an hour, Lucy came back. She looked different. Nothing had physically changed, but I felt something was off. She was unusually quiet and insisted that we leave. Nancy showed up shortly after, but the two of them didn't speak at all. No eye contact. No interaction. I kept asking Lucy what was wrong and why she wanted to leave early. She brushed it off and said she was just tired. It felt off. She's normally energetic, especially at events like this. On the way home, over an hour-long drive, she barely said a word. Every time I asked what was wrong, she gave vague answers, or said it wasn't important. When we got home, while our friends were posting photos and celebrating online, Lucy just climbed into bed and pretended to be asleep. I know her well enough to tell she was faking it. Around 2 a.m., I finally went to bed, exhausted. I don't know how long I'd been asleep when she woke me up, crying, her head on my chest. I held her and asked if she was just emotional from seeing old friends. She didn't say a word, just kept crying. I held her, hoping that whatever it was, she'd let it out when she was ready. Eventually, the tears stopped. She looked up at me and said something I never expected to hear. She told me she had cheated on me with Rick. I was at a complete loss for words. I couldn't even ask her a single question. I just sat there, frozen, completely in shock. My mind was spinning with questions about what really happened. The last time I saw Lucy, she was dancing with Rick and Nancy, along with a few others. Then the three of them disappeared for about an hour. When Lucy finally came back, she had this dark, heavy look on her face and said she wanted to leave the party immediately. She told me Nancy knew what had happened, but from the way Nancy was glaring at her, it was clear she was furious, probably with Lucy. That explained why she looked so shaken up. I still couldn't get a single word out. Seeing how stunned I was, Lucy started explaining everything herself. She said while they were dancing, Rick kept apologizing for embarrassing her, especially since she'd turned him down so many times before. He laid it on thick, complimenting her and saying that in all his travels, he'd never met a woman like her. She said she started believing him, believing his charm, his sweet words. He asked her to go for a walk, and at first she refused. But he kept insisting, saying this would be their last time seeing each other, and he needed to tell her how he really felt. She got curious and eventually agreed. They headed out to the college lawn, hoping for some peace and quiet. While they walked, Rick poured his heart out. He said he'd loved her his whole life and called her the most amazing woman on earth. She repeated a few of the things he said, but honestly, it all boiled down to the same message. Lucy admitted she was drunk, and in that moment, she gave in to the things he was saying. He took her hand, and somehow, all the pressure she'd been feeling disappeared. She said she felt oddly at ease. I won't go into all the graphic details she shared with me, but she didn't hold anything back. She told me everything. Even that halfway through, she was overwhelmed by guilt and pushed him away. My brain couldn't keep up. I felt completely numb. She nudged me, desperate for a reaction, but I stayed quiet. Eventually, I just asked her for some time. She kept crying, saying how sorry she was. I told her to go to sleep and we'd talk about it in the morning. She clung to me, terrified I'd leave. I just closed my eyes and lay there, replaying it all in my head on a loop. That's when something strange came back to me. After Lucy returned from that walk, Rick had flashed me this creepy, smug grin. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it, but now I realized that was his victory smile. That realization hit me hard. I felt this wave of anger and disgust building inside. I couldn't even pity myself. I just couldn't bear to lie next to her. She eventually cried herself to sleep. Once I was sure she was out cold, I quietly got out of bed, grabbed my laptop, wallet, and a few essentials, packed a bag, and walked out. I loved her. We'd been married for 26 years. I honestly couldn't imagine life without her. We had kids, a whole life. But I couldn't stay. I knew her too well. If I waited until morning, she'd convince me to stay. So I checked into a hotel and blocked her on everything. Her number, her social media. I even blocked the family group chat. By the time I finally fell asleep, the sun had already come up. It was around 8 or 9 a.m. when my phone started ringing nonstop. My kids were calling, along with Lucy. We have 2 children, a 24-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter. They both live on the same college campus. After reading some similar stories online, I realize now I probably should have handled it differently. I should have thought it through, planned what I'd do next, and kept things under control. I've seen posts where people pretend everything is normal while secretly preparing to expose the affair. But I couldn't do that with Lucy. She wasn't just my wife. She was my best friend, my soulmate. If I tried to fake it, she'd see right through me. And I couldn't stomach the idea of pretending with her after what she did. I never thought she'd cheat. I never even imagined it. So I had no plan. When my kids kept calling, I knew I had to talk to at least one of them before they reported me missing. I chose to call my son. He's more level-headed. I told him there was no easy way to say it, but his mom had cheated on me the night before. With Rick, call him an old flame, an admirer, maybe even a stalker. Whatever. I said I just needed time to think. He was stunned. He couldn't believe his mom would do something like that. We'd always been a close-knit, loving family, and now that image was destroyed. Everyone, our kids, our relatives, our friends, had admired the bond we shared. My son kept asking for details, wanted a full timeline, but I didn't want to crush him with all of it. I told him I wished it were a sick joke, but his mom had admitted everything to me. He's 24, he's been through breakups, but this hit differently. I asked him not to tell his sister, at least not yet. I texted her, saying I was overwhelmed with work and needed to be away for a while. That stopped the calls. So, now my daughter thinks I'm out of town for work. But Lucy and my son know the truth. I've left her. Over the next few days, I started looking for lawyers online and trying to figure out what to do next. That's when I came across an online community of men who'd been through the same thing. Some of them plotted revenge, public exposure, financial retaliation, all of it. I get where they're coming from. But I'm not like that. I still love Lucy. As much as I'm hurt, I couldn't destroy her life. I just can't be with her anymore. There's no going back. No reconciliation. I don't even know how to move forward or if I'll ever heal. I've got so much to handle. My job, my kids, our assets. I scheduled an appointment with a lawyer for the next day. I'll share an update once there's progress. Hey everyone, thank you for all the kind messages. I realized I forgot to mention some important background. Lucy and I were both management consultants. In our late 40s, we left our corporate jobs. She pursued her dream of writing, and I started consulting for startups. I work for myself now, sometimes from home, sometimes visiting clients. I don't have a fixed office, which has made it hard for Lucy to find me. I'm almost 60 now. Lucy and I had been planning our retirement, saving up for a beach house in the countryside. We'd even been in touch with sellers and were planning to buy next year. Thankfully, we hadn't bought anything yet. Otherwise, the situation would have been even more complicated. Lucy's been trying to reach me constantly. I met with the lawyer, and he advised me to talk to the kids since they're both adults. We also discussed the division of assets. I've decided to split everything evenly. I'm not going to use money as revenge. Lucy deserves her share. She's earned it, and she's earned this separation too. I know her. If she thought giving up her share would save the family, she'd do it. But it wouldn't fix what's broken. While we worked on the divorce papers, I met with my kids. I asked my son to bring his sister to a restaurant without telling her I'd be there. He agreed. When my daughter saw me, she was overwhelmed. Her first question was whether I was cheating on Lucy, because I had ghosted her. She was upset, and it hurt to see that, but I had to be strong. I calmed her down and told her I wasn't with anyone else. Then I slowly told them the truth. My son already knew, but my daughter didn't. She was crushed. She had been living with Lucy for the past couple of weeks since I left, and now she knew why. She hugged me and apologized for being angry. They both started asking. When they asked if I could consider giving our marriage another shot, I made it clear I was going through with the divorce. Watching them both break down in tears was gut-wrenching. Still, they understood my pain. They promised to support me through this tough time. I reassured them that I was separating from their mom, not from them. My daughter told me that Lucy hadn't been eating or sleeping. She'd been alternating between crying and pacing nervously, constantly trying to contact me. She even went so far as to drive to several of my clients' offices to ask about me. Of course, they told her I hadn't been around in 2 weeks. When our daughter asked if something had happened between us, since I'd never acted this way before, Lucy didn't answer. She just kept crying and locked herself in her room. I asked my daughter to stay at home with her mom until the divorce is finalized. I can see their sorrow slowly shifting into anger. When we talk about their mom, I can sense how disappointed they are in her. And I get it. They're grieving too. Our family has fallen apart, and there's one person responsible for it. Still, I don't want them to hate their mother. I remind them that she needs their support now more than ever. Here's something you won't believe. A few days later, I got a text from Rick. He asked about Lucy and said if I was divorcing her over the affair, he was willing to take her. I told him Lucy was a free woman who could make her own decisions, then blocked his number. I'm sure he just wanted to provoke me. But honestly, I didn't even feel angry. I wasn't about to get dragged into his mess. I didn't love or marry Rick. I didn't trust Rick. All of that was with Lucy. She's the one who betrayed me, and it hurt deeply. But I'm not insecure. He can have her if that's what she wants. I truly don't care. As for the divorce update, the papers were supposed to be mailed today. I'm still waiting for my daughter to call and tell me how Lucy reacts. I'll share an update once everything's finalized. In the meantime, I've still got a lot to figure out: my assets, retirement plans, and most importantly, my kids' well-being. Hey everyone. I know it's been a while since my last update, and I'm sorry for the delay. I had a long list of things to take care of. First off, the divorce is finalized now. When Lucy got the papers, she didn't take it well. She completely broke down. Up until then, she'd been living in denial, convinced that I was just angry, and would eventually come back. That illusion shattered the moment she saw those documents. She begged my lawyer to arrange a meeting with me. He refused, saying she was getting half the assets, which was already more than she deserved. She told him she didn't care about the assets, that all she wanted was me. I knew this would happen. She asked to meet me one last time before signing the papers. She was confident that if she could just FaceTime me, she'd convince me to call off the divorce. She wasn't wrong. If I'd seen her, I might have reconsidered. I still loved her. Watching her fall apart was painful, but I couldn't ignore my self-respect. She took me for granted. She wrecked our family for nothing. I refused to go back to that place. I couldn't live like that anymore. Soon after, my daughter reached out, urgently wanting to meet. She said Lucy's condition had worsened badly. She had to be hospitalized. Lucy had sunk into a deep depression and was refusing to take any medication. She'd stopped eating entirely and was now on a liquid diet. I know some of you might think I'm being cold or selfish, wondering if I ever truly loved her. But let me ask you, have you ever been betrayed like this? If not, you can't imagine the pain I've felt. Saying I loved Lucy is an understatement. I practically worshipped her. I was her biggest supporter, her #1 fan. We'd been together for almost 30 years. She's the mother of my children. And Rick was right about one thing. It's rare to find a woman like Lucy. She's smart, talented, empathetic, everything you could want in a partner. That's why I always treated her with love and respect. So what did she do? She hit me where it hurt the most. I never imagined, not even in my darkest thoughts, that she'd betray me. And with Rick, of all people? A few days after she got the divorce papers, Nancy called. She asked how I was doing and how Lucy was holding up. I told her we were separating. She didn't seem shocked and admitted she already knew why. Later that night, she called again. During the call, she asked how I found out about the affair. I told her Lucy confessed. Nancy expressed regret, saying she'd warned Lucy not to go out with Rick, but Lucy ignored her advice. Then Nancy told me something that made me absolutely sure I'd made the right decision. Her version of events didn't quite match Lucy's. Nancy said she and Lucy had been dancing when Rick joined them and started flirting. He leaned in and whispered something. Lucy said it was an apology. Nancy felt uneasy and tried to step in, but Lucy seemed to enjoy the attention. When Rick suggested taking a walk, Lucy looked to Nancy for approval. Nancy strongly advised against it. Everyone knew Rick's reputation, but Lucy went with him anyway. At the time, Nancy didn't think much of it. Lucy had shown interest in Rick, so she figured it was no big deal. But later, when she realized Lucy hadn't come back, she got worried. So she went looking, and guess where she found them? In the changing room at the college swimming pool. Lucy told me they had only gone out to the lawn, but Nancy caught them in the act. They didn't stop because Lucy felt guilty. They stopped because Nancy walked in. Until that moment, I'd given Lucy credit for owning up to what happened. I thought she made a mistake, got drunk, and her conscience kicked in. But no, she wasn't drunk. She wasn't confused. She made a deliberate choice. The pool was at least a 15-minute walk away, and the changing rooms were far inside the building. That wasn't an accident. It was intentional. After telling me everything, Nancy asked if I could ever see myself giving Lucy another chance. She believed Lucy had been honest and fully confessed. What Nancy didn't know was that Lucy had lied to me. I didn't even bother correcting her. In that moment, I lost every ounce of respect I still had for Lucy. Meanwhile, my kids told me Lucy's condition had declined further and that she might be close to self-harm. I called Nancy and told her what Lucy had said to me and how her version didn't match Nancy's. I asked her to visit Lucy, to talk to her, because keeping the secret was clearly destroying her from the inside. Sure thing. Here's your script rewritten in clear, natural American English, keeping the same meaning and roughly the same length, with no headings. I also asked Nancy to let Lucy know that I was fully aware of what really happened that night, and that I had no intention of forgiving her or ever taking her back. I told her to focus on her health instead, because I knew she was hurting herself on purpose, hoping it might lead to some kind of reconciliation. But I know Lucy, don't I? Nancy paid her a visit and later gave me an update. Lucy still hadn't fully recovered from the weakness and depression, but my daughter said she was doing much better. On top of that, Lucy had finally signed the divorce papers. That brought me a huge sense of relief. My plan now is to wrap up my remaining work and head out on a solo journey. I've decided to abandon the idea of settling down in one place. It would just drive me crazy. I know I didn't handle everything as gracefully as some people in this community have in similar situations, but I did the best I could. We'll see what the future holds. I'll continue to share updates. Hey everyone. I hope you're doing well. It's been a year since I last posted an update. I wish I could say the time flew by, but for me, it didn't. I spent a few months living in a motel and then rented a condo until the divorce was finalized. As for work, I slowly shifted to clients that allowed me to work fully remotely, just like I had planned. The money Lucy and I had saved for our retirement home was split evenly. She got half, and I gave my half equally to my 2 adult children. I didn't need it, and I trust them to use it wisely. Lucy, meanwhile, is still in therapy. Nancy keeps in regular contact with her and also checks in on me from time to time. She shared something about Lucy that I wasn't expecting. Now, this is coming from Nancy, who still supports Lucy, so take it with a grain of salt, though I don't think she'd lie to me. Here's the shocking part. Even though I've always said I know Lucy inside and out, this made me question whether I ever really did. I always saw her as a strong and grounded person, but loneliness really got to her. She started chatting with Rick again. He told her he loved her, until he found out about the divorce. Then, his behavior shifted. He ghosted her. Lucy was devastated when Rick stopped responding after she told him we were officially divorced. She reminded him of all the sweet things he'd said about being with her, but in the end, it turned out he was just playing games. He only ever wanted something casual. He even told her he couldn't be in a committed relationship with someone like her, a strong-willed woman. If you know Lucy, it's hard to believe that she would ever beg someone like Rick for a relationship. She couldn't have sunk lower. Everyone knew Rick was a shady guy. When they had a falling out, he ended it by mocking her, saying he couldn't believe he managed to fool someone like her. That stung. She lost everything because she fell for his lies. The last update I got on Lucy was a few weeks ago. My daughter had been living with her since I left. Lucy needed the company to get through her depression. But after a year, my daughter realized she couldn't stay any longer. Lucy had become too difficult to live with. Lucy, once emotionally strong, had become insecure and erratic. She constantly needed people around, constantly needed attention. She'd become controlling. She bombards our kids with texts and calls if they don't answer quickly. She even asked our son to move in with her until he got married, but he declined. She pressures our daughter to stay home instead of going out with friends or taking trips. But my kids aren't kids anymore. They're adults, and they can't live under those restrictions. Every time my daughter tried to set boundaries, Lucy would break down and say she was terrified of losing them, especially after losing me. They reassured her they weren't abandoning her, but warned that if she kept trying to control them, it would push them away. That sparked arguments. The kids told her she wasn't there for them when they needed her most, and now she was making everything harder. This wasn't the mom they remembered. I didn't recognize her either. Eventually, they had to tell her plainly that her behavior was destroying what was once a happy and loving family. It hit her hard to hear that her own children blamed her for everything. My daughter moved out 2 weeks ago. She told me she'd done everything she could, but she couldn't put her own life on pause to take care of Lucy anymore. I agree with her. She needs to move forward, and Lucy needs to figure out how to take control of her life again. Some people might feel satisfied seeing their cheating ex hit rock bottom. But in those moments when I thought I might feel that way, even for 20 or 30 seconds, I just felt sorry for her. She made terrible choices, and now she's stuck living with the consequences. I still hope she finds her way back to the strong, confident woman she used to be. Someone who doesn't need guys like Rick for emotional support. As for me, I've spent the past year living in 4 different countries, soaking in the local cultures, trying new food, and fully embracing new ways of life. It's been a beautiful experience. At first, I was upset that my retirement plans had to change. I had always pictured those years with Lucy. But now, I feel grateful to have discovered so many new places and people. Just to clarify, I haven't started a new relationship, and I'm not really looking for one. I'm just open to whatever comes my way, and if anything major happens, I'll be sure to share it here. Hi again, everyone. Sorry I haven't posted in a while. To be honest, not much has happened in the last 2.5 years. Other than traveling to more than a dozen countries and rediscovering my love for painting. I originally started this thread to share the story of my cheating wife, and it didn't seem necessary to update it with travel logs, so I stayed quiet. But something happened last month that I think is worth mentioning. After 4 years, I saw Lucy again. The occasion? My son is getting married. That's right. He found someone amazing and decided to take the next step. 2 months before the wedding, he called me and said he wanted Lucy and me to meet his fiance's parents. At first, I was hesitant. I told him I'd just see them at the wedding. But then I realized this wasn't about me. It was about being there for my son. The bride's parents hosted a dinner for both families a week before the wedding. I hadn't planned to go, but I changed my mind at the last minute. Seeing Lucy again in that setting was complicated. When I arrived, Lucy looked surprised. She looked different, older somehow, and there was something in her eyes that told me she'd changed. She greeted me with a polite smile, but I could feel her tension. For years, she had kept her long, thick hair, even as we both aged, but now it was clear that the past 4 years had taken a toll. They sat us next to each other at the table, which made me think our son hadn't told them this was our first time seeing each other in years. It wasn't an issue in front of everyone, but when we finally had a moment alone, she told me I looked healthier and happier. I told her it was because I'd cut all the toxicity out of my life. That seemed to throw her off for a second. She glanced around, making sure no one had overheard. She asked if I was seeing anyone, but I dodged the question, saying my relationship status wasn't her business. During our brief talk, I barely looked her in the eye. I kept my focus on everyone else. When dinner ended and it was time to leave, I hugged everyone goodbye, but only gave Lucy a nod and told her to take care. She hadn't expected that. She even stood up when I was saying my goodbyes, but it all happened so fast, I doubt it looked awkward to anyone else. Surprisingly, my interaction with Lucy was uneventful. She either felt intimidated or just too nervous to talk more. Whatever the reason, I didn't give it much thought after I left. Outside, my son walked with me and asked if I wanted to stay with him for a few days. I declined and promised to call him. Then I drove back to my hotel. I don't have a permanent home anymore. I'm usually on the road, and when I'm in town, I stay in motels. After 26 years of being a family man, switching to a nomadic lifestyle was tough, but now I enjoy the freedom. On another note, I have someone in my life now. 2 years ago, while visiting Tokyo, I met Ashleen. She's 52 and had just gotten out of an abusive relationship. She was enjoying her first solo trip, and we met while hiking a mountain. We hit it off, not romantically at first, just two people not looking for anything serious. After Tokyo, I was heading to South Korea, and she was going to Thailand. We stayed in touch for 6 months before deciding to travel together. For the past year and a half, we've explored over 8 countries as travel companions. We didn't rush anything emotional or physical during the first few months. We both needed time to heal and understand what we wanted. From the start, we agreed we weren't looking to get married. We just wanted to enjoy traveling and experiencing life. My kids knew about Ashleen, but they chose not to tell Lucy, afraid it might worsen her depression. When I got back to the hotel after the dinner, I called my son to explain why I didn't stay with him. I told him Ashleen had come with me, and I didn't want to leave her alone. I also said I wanted Ashleen to attend the wedding. He was happy, but worried about how Lucy would react. I made it clear that Ashleen is my partner and deserved to meet the family. My son looped in my daughter on the call to get her take, and she agreed. Ashleen should be there. Since the wedding was still a week away, I used the time to show Ashleen around Kentucky. It was her first time visiting. On the wedding day, as soon as we arrived, I noticed Lucy staring. Her face fell when she saw me holding Ashleen's hand. I had already warned Ashleen about how Lucy might behave, but she assured me she could handle it. What happened next showed me just how controlling Lucy had become since we split. She marched right up to us, grabbed my wrist, and tried to pull me aside. I told her firmly that I didn't want to talk privately. She asked if Ashleen was my girlfriend and if I planned to marry her. I told her that it was none of her business and asked her to leave us alone because guests were arriving and some were noticing her tears and anger. She shouted that she didn't care about anyone else and needed answers. My daughter stepped in and tried to calm her, but Lucy refused. We pointed out that she was ruining the wedding. Lucy snapped back, saying she didn't care. That's when my usually calm daughter became a whole different person. With a quiet but fierce tone, she looked her mother in the eye and said, "Yes, Mom, you were supposed to walk into the wedding with Dad. You were supposed to be with him, but you chose someone else. So either accept this and move on, or I'll have you removed before the wedding even starts." I almost stepped in. It's instinctual to protect your kid, but my daughter stood her ground with strength I didn't. No, she had. She pointed her finger at Lucy, and every word landed hard. I felt Lucy's grip on my wrist loosen. Her face changed. First anger, then betrayal, and finally sadness. She stared at me for a few seconds, then walked away. She never even introduced herself to Ashleen. On the bright side, my daughter apologized to Ashleen, who hugged us both. I told her she didn't need to say sorry. My daughter is strong, and I'm proud of her. I could see she was emotional when she said, "It's on her, Dad. We've suffered enough. She needs to move on or leave you alone." Lucy made life hard for everyone and still expected sympathy from people. Over the years, my kids never had a family home to gather in, and I take responsibility for that. But during the rest of the wedding, it was clear Lucy was upset that our kids were supporting me. She mostly stood alone or off to the side, definitely not the presence you'd expect from the groom's mother. She didn't even show up for the family photos. A few days later, Nancy called to tell me Lucy was devastated. She saw me move on, while she was still alone, and it bruised her ego. I told Nancy that my kids and I are done with Lucy's drama. She can live her life however she wants. I just want peace in mind. Lately, I've been thinking about settling down somewhere closer to my children. I want to give them a home they can come back to, even if they're grown. That wedding made me realize a new chapter is beginning. Grandkids might not be far off, but I won't be sharing any of that with Lucy, and I'm perfectly fine with that. If Ashleen's open to it, we'll see what the future holds. Thanks to everyone who shared their stories and advice. I truly appreciate it. And if I could leave you with anything, It's this: be loyal. Be honest. If not for your partner, then for your kids. Life is good, and there's always more to enjoy. Take care.